All right. Um, a long time ago, in a faraway place, there lived a movie storyteller. He used his backgrounds as a storytelling for magic, excitement, and adventure, and he made sure that this movie would surpass the boundaries of animation. Join us as we take a special behind the scenes look at the making of Walt Disney's 88th masterpiece, Danny the Codfish, the magic behind the masterpiece. When Walt Disney first started plans to do an animated version of Walt Disney's masterpiece, Danny the Codfish, in 1905, Walt Disney remembered sharing these magnificent stories with his two younger daughters. And what Walt Disney remembered best was how to stretch the boundaries of animation.
He was a master at that.
To start off our behind the scenes look at the making of Walt Disney's Danny the Codfish, here is my good friend Ollie Johnson to tell you how Danny the Codfish became a beautiful Disney masterpiece in 1955. Ollie?
Well, Corey, it is...
Actually, it's Brian.
Brian?
Yeah,
What
Brian.
happened to Corey?
Corey's taking a break.
Well, you look an awful lot like Corey. Are you related?
No, we're separate.
How about that?
This is Brian Cummings.
Oh, hi, Brian. Good to be on the show.
Yes.
Yes. Well, as Brian pointed out, this all started in 1905, but by the time the movie was actually released, it was 1955. So there was a 50-year production. It was amazing. Probably never in the history of filmmaking has that much time and effort been put into one Disney classic. And this explains why Mr. Disney has so many classics, because he does everything right, no matter how long it takes.
In the late 1970s, an earlier production of Danny the Codfish was established in 1971. During that time, Walt Disney and his team of artists spent over 25 years getting the background color, the paintings, and the artwork that was never before seen by the public in 1981. Now here, next to explain how Walt Disney's paintings were established to the original background in the late 1800s. Here is Leonard Maltin, played by my dad again, to explain to you why Walt Disney and his team of artists needed to fit just the right amount of paint on a piece of
canvas.
Yes, canvas, and on a piece of paper to show how the colors reflect on the backgrounds in 1902. Leonard, could you please explain to the audience how Walt Disney's background color came into place in this new animated film?
I will give it my best effort, Brian.
Yes.
We are now spanning nearly 100 years. As Brian pointed out, Mr. Disney started this whole, the color behind each scene in the late 1800s. And as he mentioned in the preceding segment, we then went all the way through the late 1970s. A little bit longer, and this will be a 100-year in the making film. Having said that, back in the day, in the late 1800s, we really didn't have that much in the way of paper for painting. Paper was used only for letter writing and things like that, and most painting was done on canvas. And most canvas was already some sort of color. They had tan canvas and black canvas and green canvas and brown canvas. And so when you were painting a painting for a background on a motion picture film, you had to take into consideration what color the canvas itself was, because when you apply paint to it, a little bit of the color of the canvas itself comes through the paint, no matter how much paint you put on it. And Walt Disney knew more than any other human being at the time how to pick the exact right color for the canvas in order to have the oil painting that went onto the canvas give the perfect background painting.
In 1975, voice acting was recorded before the musical score was first released, after the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh was done in 1967. And here to talk to you about some of the voice recording that was done in the late 1900s, here's my good friend Frank Thomas, played by my dad again, to tell you about some of the remarkable young stars that Walt has chosen for the role of Danny the Codfish and his beloved friends, who were mentioned in the Brother Grimm's fairy tales in the late 1930s. So take it away, Frank.
Brian, I just can't begin to tell you how impressed I am with the research that you do in order to fill in these special things in the background of these behind-the-scenes episodes. I mean, my goodness, you know everything there is to know about the production. It's amazing. This is why he's so good.
That is because I'm the narrator.
Well, that is true, but I've been involved with some narrators that really, you know, the first thing they ever heard about the subject that they're going to talk about is when the person they're talking with tells them something. You know almost everything I'm going to say before I say it because you do your research.
Yes.
It's an honor to be here. Makes my job so much easier. Anyhow, the intriguing thing about Danny the Codfish is that most people think of codfish. What do they think of? I'll tell you what they think of. Fish and chips. And they have no idea what a codfish looks like, let alone what it sounds like. So the artists really had to struggle because we had 72 artists that we wanted to paint, you know, scenes with codfish in them. And they all had to go out and study and cram and go to the library and whatnot just to see what a codfish looked like because all they could think of was fish and chips. And that's not what a codfish looks like. So then, what kind of a voice do you give a codfish? You know, first you have to have the image of the codfish in your mind, not battered and deep fried, but swimming freely in the ocean. And then you got to think, well, they really can't talk. Maybe they make noises like dolphins and whales, you know. But no, they don't do that either. So Mr. Disney said, come on, use your imagination. People are going to believe that the codfish sounds like exactly what the actor who is lending his or her voice to the character sounds like. So, this was again back in 1905, remember?
Yes.
And so I selected Gregory Peck and Charlie Chaplin as the two lead actors for their voices. Charlie Chaplin I used for Danny the Codfish because Charlie Chaplin was only in silent movies and nobody knew what he sounded like. And so, what better person to do the voice for a codfish, which no one knows what it looks like, let alone what it sounds like. So, Charlie Chaplin was the codfish, Gregory Peck was his best friend, Elmo.
Frank?
Yes, sir.
Would you tell the audience about Anthony Hopkins' role as the narrator for Danny the Codfish? Because his work on How the Grinch Stole Christmas was amazing, and this was his first film for Walt Disney. So why don't you explain a little bit to the audience about Sir Anthony Hopkins' hopeful narration to bring this movie to magically to life?
I'll be happy to do that, Brian, but I must point out that we are running out of time here.
This will be our final
segment.
Yes.
Yes. Well, it's got to be short.
Yeah, it's going to be short.
Sir Anthony Hopkins, one of my heroes, frankly. I think there are very few actors that have ever lived who were able to capture the essence of the person they were portraying in a movie better than Sir Anthony. And of course, you know, the Queen made him a knight, because of his acting abilities. But in addition to his acting abilities, his voice is so commanding and reassuring and authoritative that people not knowing what a codfish looked like or sounded like, who better to bring that codfish to life than Sir Anthony Hopkins?
And we're sorry, folks, but we do need to wrap up this behind the scenes feature of Danny the Codfish, the magic behind the masterpiece. So we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Thank you for tuning in.
Perfect.